Rewind the dynamite from the post-wrestling site. AEW, lighting up the fuse. Sit back and enjoy the bubbly as we hear from Jon and Wai Ting. Where we're going, we don't need roads. And if the buck stops here, this thing might blow. Everything you hear are opinions of the show. And if you don't like it, go to the forums and let them know.
Welcome everybody to Rewind a Dynamite. My name is Wai Ting, and if you're hearing my voice, that means I am here by myself and joined by Bruce Lord. Bruce, welcome back to Rewind a Dynamite. Great reviews from your first appearance on this show. Thank you very much for joining us again.
Oh, happy to be doing it again, Wai. Yeah, I mean, it seemed to go okay the first time. I'm sure it can only go downhill from here, but we'll see how it goes.
Well, I'm at least a little bit more optimistic. I think you're great the first time. I've no doubt you'll be kicking ass this week,
thanks.
And maybe even next week, because as many people know, John Pollock announced a brief sabbatical on Monday. I felt like I was going to have to dance around this for quite some time about the reason why he took time off. A lot of people, I have to say, I mean, there was some concern, but I think for most people, they were just like, John, you deserve this break.
Mm-hmm.
Please go and take it. I'm very pleased to announce tonight that John, his wife, and Max have a brand new addition to the family. Welcome the EVP of Post Wrestling, EV Pollock, to the world. Born today. So that is the big reason. So I'm here to tell you, everybody, he's not going to be taking much of a break. His break, he told me, will consist of a 48-hour stay in the hospital. So enjoy that, because he's going to be busier than ever managing any wrestling website. I guarantee you that. So best of luck to you, but congratulations to the Pollocks once again.
Yeah, absolutely. It's obviously, a more, quote, proper vacation, I'm sure John would appreciate, but it's really, really nice to hear that that he's celebrating such wonderful news. And so, yeah, obviously a well-deserved break from the grind here at Post.
So we thank, of course, all of our contributors for joining us. We got Bruce Lord tonight. He'll be joining us this week and next week. On Friday, we've got John Cena joining us for Rewind a SmackDown. That'll continue to be live for all patrons. This weekend, for our Survivor Series post show, I've got Mike Murray and WH Park. It's a big deal. Okay. It's like something like the birth of a child that's got to get WH Park coming out here to watch main roster WWE. So he'll be joining us on Sunday. And then on Monday, the Godfather, Nate Milton, will be joining me for Rewind a Raw. So that's our schedule coming up. But in addition to all of those guests, I'm also very pleased to announce that for the start of all of these Rewind a Raw, Rewind a Dynamite, Rewind a SmackDown shows, for our news updates, we have the person who's manning the ship over at postwrestling.com, taking over for John's very, very, heavy tasks, trying to keep up with all this wrestling news. We have Andrew Thompson. Not only will he be manning the website, he'll be joining us on the show every week for at least, the opening portions of the show, just to give us a bit of a news update. So Andrew Thompson, if you're there, please unmute yourself and welcome to the show.
Yo, Wai Ting and Bruce Lord, how you doing, fellas?
Good.
How you doing, Andrew?
I'm doing great, man. No complaints. It's good to be joining you fellas on Rewind a Dynamite. The best pro wrestling podcast out there, man. I had to throw it out there. Gotta plug the site. Gotta plug the site, man.
Truth.
The best sure, yeah. But I mean, let's not forget the wrestling adventure. Bushby and Thompson's wrestling adventure.
There we go. Wait. I had to real quick. Davey had asked me to cut a promo on you for.
Hey, wait a second. This is a friendly conversation. This is neutral ground. I didn't know we were going to get into a war of words, but please, okay.
No. See, I already cut it. I sent it to him earlier, so everybody's going to hear it on the premiere of their Up Next game show tomorrow. So that's going to be the premiere of my promo.
Well, quick plug for our friends at Up Next. Tomorrow is their Survivor Series fantasy draft, and I believe that will be live on their YouTube, correct?
Yep.
So I'm there to defend my crown. I was a winner at last year's draft. Andrew Thompson happened to win the Survivor Series draft only because I wasn't there. So tomorrow, we shall see who the champion of champions is. So that'll be up at youtube.com/upnext, where everybody, of course, can also see tonight's NXT review, as well as a watch along for Sunday's Survivor Series, I'm sure, with our friends. Also on Twitch now. So follow Up Next Podcast, also on Twitch. But Andrew, you're here to tell us what's going on in the news today. So why don't you kick it off?
Let's do it. Firstly, I believe it was on Tuesday. Marti Belle, formerly of the NWA, announced that her contract has expired and she is no longer with the company. They recently lost Allison Kay. Serena Deeb is now with AEW, but she's the NWA World Women's Champion. And we all know that it's publicly that Thunder Rosa, her contract is expiring next year. So it looks like NWA is like kind of, slowly losing their women's division, although their women's title is constantly being defended on AEW. So, I was just wondering what you guys kind of think about that. And most of their women's division kind of, stepping away and publicly announcing that they're stepping away.
Yeah, I mean, Wai and I were sort of talking about this a couple of weeks ago, the fact that, obviously AEW attempting to partner with, Joshi Promotions obviously isn't workable with travel restrictions. And so it does sort of seem that I imagine the financial problems that the NWA sort of finds itself in are maybe, could end up benefiting the AEW women's roster here. I mean, we've already seen Marti showing up in the women's tag team tournament previously. I think she'd be a really good fit to AEW if she does want to join up.
I think the continued story here to me is just like what the future of the NWA might be. Certainly like we have to look at it's the health of NWA even prior to like all this stuff happening. They were definitely on like an upward trajectory, like playing around with like the occasional pay-per-views. But beyond that, like what really was their like source of revenue? Yeah. They're like, I think the ultimate hope was to try to get Power onto a TV channel, but even that might have been a bit of a long shot. And certainly, with the loss of with the pandemic and also with the loss of David Lagana, I mean, it just feels like at least Billy Corgan for the meanwhile just perhaps seems to be letting go of like any sort of ambition of maintaining NWA as a full-time company.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with both of your points. I think NWA is kind of they're kind of in a weird kind of limbo right now, but they're still kind of being. I think AEW is really doing a really great job of kind of keeping them within the realm of professional wrestling along with the United Wrestling Network. So hopefully they're able to get back on their feet sooner or later. But next up we have Mandy Rose. Her shoulder injury is legit. That was not it was used as a storyline, but her shoulders really hurt. Both FOW Online and PW Insider both independently confirmed that her shoulder injury what was a legit thing to get her removed from the storyline, and it did happen prior to Raw, and it wasn't anything that happened during the match that caused that. So that was why she and Dana Brooke were pulled from the Survivor Series team. Dana Brooke is not injured; she is fine just by the looks of everything. But Mandy Rose her shoulder is legitimately injured, and that was the reason she got pulled from Survivor Series.
Makes a lot of sense. I mean, she didn't get involved in the match really at all on Monday, so unfortunate. I mean, it seems to be a slew of injuries right now.
Mm-hmm. I believe it was last Friday, Chelsea Green. She also she broke her wrist. I believe that was. So yeah, that's kind of unfortunate. WWE kind of had these back-to-back injuries like that. But also Randy Orton and Drew McIntyre's the third hour of Raw led to the best hour ratings wise since August, and I just wanted to kind of get you guys' thoughts on that. Like, what is the key to kind of keeping that consistent trajectory for Monday Night Raw? Because I'm pretty sure you can't just throw on a world championship match on every show. And do you guys think that success as far as this week's shows go is credited to the names of Drew McIntyre, Randy Orton, or did it have more to do with people expecting to see a world title change?
Well, how far in advance was the match announced? Forgive me, I don't remember if it was just announced that day or the day before.
Last week.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess if nothing else, that says that there are at least a certain number of main roster WWE fans who still do hold out hope that you are going to, once in a blue moon, see the actual legit advertised title match. I believe it was just the week before, way that you and John were talking about how, the expectation in this company, in this product, is that you are definitely not ever getting a clean finish of any sort of major title match on either Raw or SmackDown. And it's just been, years and years and years of that being the norm. So, I mean, the fact that many people tuned in, maybe hoping or expecting that they would actually get a proper resolution to that, is something else. I might sort of have quibbles about, announcing and putting a title match on TV that quickly, but, it seems to suggest they're doing something right.
I do wonder, like, how much of the, Drew McIntyre appearing on SmackDown and, like, really heavily teasing that Drew McIntyre Roman Reigns match might have kind of led to people really buying into, like, the possibility of a title change happening on Monday. Certainly, if you look at, like, the build on SmackDown, and also the build throughout the show of just Drew McIntyre really, like, being the only person talking about the future, and Randy Orton indicating, I would say, like, by his words, that, like, his story and his title reign was going to end tonight. Like, it gave, I would say, most seasoned viewers, like, a real indication that, like, a title change could happen. But, I think regardless, like, having those two in a title match main eventing Raw was probably expected to do a good rating anyway. So I honestly, like, I just hope Raw, like, I hope the WWE is not afraid to, like, give us some substantial result from these 3-hour TV shows. Like, I talked about this on Monday, but I mean, we're in a period where it's your TV shows are more valuable than your pay-per-views. So you could spare, a significant event once in a while, significant match once in a while for either a Raw or a SmackDown, just to kind of keep people, satisfied with investing 3 hours. Because how often do we just get these, like, bullshit teases and no results coming out of it? So I hope it's a trend that continues, Andrew.
Yeah, I agree with you, man, 100%. And then lastly here for you fellas, well, of course, it's in relevancy to what you're going to be talking about tonight. AEW, Matt Sydal has officially signed his All Elite Wrestling contract. And last week they officially announced that Jade Cargill has signed. Prior to that, we had Anthony Bowens and Max Caster officially getting signed. Kind of want to get you guys' thoughts about just the mix of talents that AEW is bringing in. Of course, we got these fresh faces, such as Anthony Bowens, Max Caster, and Jade Cargill. And then now we have the veteran talent and Matt Sydal.
I mean, I think, Wai, you and John were talking, I believe it was last week, about, kind of what Sydal brings to the mix. I just want to say I'm really excited about Bowens and Caster joining up. They've been a real highlight on Dark for the past few weeks. Like Bowens in particular, his, like, look in ring, I think, has a lot of potential. I think that you could definitely see the Acclaimed showing up on Dynamite sooner rather than later.
I'm really excited about, like, Matt Sydal. I mean, I thought he was already signed, to be honest with you. And the fact that, like, he just announced officially signing this week maybe gives me hope that he's not just going to take some sort of, like, mid-card jobber role, and that they've really just been holding him back because he hasn't been a full-time guy yet. So now that he is officially signed, perhaps they will have reason to, give him proper storylines and really elevate him higher up in the card. So he's absolutely a guy who I think, like, still has, like, a great deal of potential. Maybe not so much, like, delivering, like, Eddie Kingston level promos, but I mean, that doesn't mean he is, like, he can't, I guess, offer a unique character in another way. So, seems like and Jade Cargill, like, from what I've seen of her already, like, I've been really impressed.
I haven't seen anything of her in ring, but I imagine, as we'll sort of talk about later on in this episode, Wai, I think, like, her just look and presentation is so cool and striking and different that however they decide to kind of slot her in, whether it's as a manager, as a worker, or whatever it is, she really kind of livens things up.
Andrew, thank you very much for all these stories. Tell us what you've got going on the website, because you have a lot right now up there at postwrestling.com.
Just mainly just covering the big news of the day, getting the updates up. There was an update today about Tony Khan. He did a bunch of he went on one of those media tours, so he did a bunch of interviews, and he just talked about the product and how he kind of views AEW Dark now as a developmental territory, and just pointing out specifically guys like Will Hobbs, who he, has earmarked for a big push, and, just basically giving a runaround, or not necessarily runaround, I should say, but like, just giving an update on what he thinks about how the product is progressing and the changes that he's seen over the past, past year or so, and just thinking about how he's learned how to say no to certain ideas instead of just like rolling over and saying yes to everything. And he was, he was really keen on that. And I know he mentioned that a couple of times on interviews, just, to just kind of keep keeping away and, staying the course, I guess. But, and other than that, I got an interview up on the site with Myron Reed, who successfully defended the MLW World Middleweight title on at the recent MLW tables against Brian Pillman Jr. And he called out one Leo Rush after the show. So you should, so it looks like they're heading that direction. And, just to mention this, man, congratulations to Leo Rush. That dude is all over the place, man. He's MLW, GCW. He's going to be on MTV's The Challenge. Leo Rush is going to be in a Power Ranger movie. Like, dude is like really made like a complete 360 since he left WWE.
Super J Cup coming up. Yeah.
Super J. Yep.
What is he doing in the Power Rangers movie?
I don't think he like really specified it, but it probably could be like just like a cameo appearance, or maybe he's like really like in the movie, but he didn't really specify, but he did say he is going to be in a Power Rangers movie.
That is amazing. To me that's like the cooler than like any wrestling project. Where can people
not Putty Patrol?
Yeah. Where can people see the interview, Andrew?
You can see it you got to catch the written version on postwrestling.com or on my YouTube channel, Andrew Thompson Interviews.
Awesome. And people can follow Andrew Thompson on Twitter, AD Thompson with an H, __. Do not forget that extra underscore that is there for whatever reason, because AD Thompson _ has already been taken.
There we go.
So __. Don't forget that. Thank you, Andrew, for joining us.
No problem, man. And before I go, wait, you taking this L tomorrow, my brother. I'm sorry.
Hey, what?
Forget Hobbs. Here's the real swerve.
I just promoted the extra hard. Now you're like, trash talking me. YouTube.com/upnext tomorrow. You're going down, dude. That's all I can say. All right, Andrew.
Job, man. Hey,
Talk to you tomorrow.
Bruce, good job, man. And as usual on the latest appearance and Wade, great job for you as always. Appreciate the both of y'all, man. Good luck on the review tonight.
Thanks, Andrew. Good to talk to you.
Peace.
So Andrew made a lot of mention of Myron Reed and MLW. Just wanted to also promote John Ceno's MLW Fusion Report, the restart, MLW's first show in 7 months. And Jon Ceno has written a report up at postwrestling.com. He will continue to write those for us in the coming weeks. So we're firing on all cylinders just to try to make up for the absence of one man in John Pollock. So we're all going to do our best. But Bruce, let's get into, well, first of all, is there anything else here? I mentioned the shows this week. We're not going to do a draw for a t-shirt this week, but I can tell you a Black Friday sale will be coming very shortly next week. So hold on to that. And anything you wanted to mention before this edition of Dynamite?
Nothing in terms of news off the top of my head. We already sort of talked about the fact that Khan's comments regarding the change of Dark away kind of from enhancement and more towards developmental, I think is really interesting. And as somebody who has slogged through every single match on Dark up until now, it's started to really get interesting over the past few episodes. So a little plug for that if you're kind of on the fence about Dark.
Tell me, what keeps you watching Dark? Like, quite frankly, I just it's difficult for me because I have a lot to try to catch up with anyway. So much so that by Tuesday, it's just daunting for me to with so many matches.
Yeah, no, I get you. I mean, if I was watching main roster WWE, I certainly would not be keeping up with this. I guess it's been interesting to me to sort of see if you can sort of read the tea leaves regarding who may or may not be making an impression, right? Obviously, as Andrew was saying there, folks were really impressed with Hobbs and the Acclaimed and other people. And so there is something kind of, the legitimate, sports baseball fan in me who likes, looking at scouting reports for minor leaguers and things like that. And, did this person just have a lucky day, or are they actually, a serious talent that merits, further investigation or being, brought up to the big leagues? I find that sort of process of sort of, sifting through it, kind of looking for those diamonds in the rough, to be really interesting. And now it's sort of shifting over towards there's a bit more promo work happening. Britt Baker had this new kind of talk show segment in there. So the fact that they're giving even some of the unsigned folks a little bit of promo time here and there to kind of get a little bit of seasoning, I think, is interesting as well.
Seems like it's a place now for people to workshop not just their in-ring work, but also a promo segment like that. How was that Britt Baker segment?
I got a kick out of it. It was kind of, her being a sort of slightly heelish, like daytime talk show, Oprah, Ricky Lake type character, kind of firing off jabs at, various members of the roster, a couple of digs at Trump and whatnot, and then bringing Hybrid 2 on to sort of, allow them to sort of, cut a promo about being overlooked and disrespected, and kind of ended up, presaging their run in on tonight's episode of Dynamite.
So tonight's Dynamite starts off here. We've got Top Flight, the team of Darius and Dante Martin, taking on the Young Bucks. The Bucks previewed this last week, saying that a team messaged them in their DMs. They looked at their reel and gave them a call. So we actually even had a video package here introducing us to Top Flight. They are 21 and 19 years old, respectively. They grew up watching teams like the Bucks and the Machine Guns, and just the realization that one of these dudes was born in 2001. The other person not born that much earlier. WrestleMania 17 is older than one of these guys. One of these guys was not alive at the same time that ECW was. And now these are like full-grown men, like having a match that I'm reviewing right now on TV. So just another reminder. How old are you, Bruce?
I just hit 40 a couple of months ago. So yeah, life comes at you fast when you start hitting the late 30s and whatnot. I teach, college age students. And so I am consistently having to sort of make that sort of shift and adjustment, like, a non-zero number of the students that I am teaching this semester were not alive, let alone aware of 9/11 when that happened, or whatever it might be. Every year, every semester, you find your own references and cultural callbacks that you might make in a classroom environment, just beginning to kind of whiff and fly over folks' heads. And it's the only game in town. It doesn't stop. So yeah.
Well, you speak with the wisdom of somebody even beyond your real life age. So at least you've got that going for you that I certainly don't. But we have the Young Bucks here taking on the 21 and 19-year-old Top Flight. They're both wearing BLM armbands, worth mentioning. Really good shine from those two to start. Excellent tag team acrobatics. A lot of that snappy, flippy offense. Very much in the same style as the Bucks and Private Party. So these two really couldn't have asked for a better pair of opponents for their first match on TV. A lot of this action, honestly, is like difficult to recap because it's just so fast. I could just say, just watch it. It's worth it. In the end, BT Trigger gives the Bucks the win about 10 minutes in. So what did you think of the match, Bruce?
Yeah, I think the Bucks gave Top Flight a lot to work with. And I think they, on the whole, they really hit it. In particular, I was really impressed with, I think it was Dante's just incredible vertical ability. There was a nutty Tope Con Hero that he hit. There was another move that I don't know that I've ever seen before, kind of a rolling diving spin into a top rope Rana that was attempted. It wasn't completely perfectly pulled off, but with a little bit of polish, I think that move could be fantastic. I think the other thing that was sort of happening here was that we're sort of, seeing the Bucks kind of make that sort of move that we've seen people like, Hiroshi Tanahashi and John Cena play, where when they understand that they are in the ring with a really likable, plucky underdog, or depending on which city they're in, there's that like subtle little heel work. like just very, very minor adjustments made to the in-ring work. And I think the Bucks did a little bit of that, drawing upon, some of their old PWG stuff to really, really get Top Flight over as, the super keen baby faces. And it worked. You got the crowd cheering for them at a couple of points there. I like the Bucks doing that more than the kind of the crazy over-the-top character stuff outside of the ring, super kicking Shivani and everything like that. Playing with their veteran status in ring and allowing them to sort of adjust and modulate working heel versus working face in there, I think is something that's a sort of veteran talent that I was happy to see them exhibit here.
It's interesting to see the Bucks, very much like them versus Private Party, but like in this case as well, it's like they are facing a younger version of themselves. And for me, it's like interesting to watch this. It's kind of like, seeing like Captain America face off against Captain America in Avengers Endgame, where like you have, I would say, a more seasoned, even though maybe not as strong, maybe not as wild of a version of himself facing a younger, more wild version of himself.
Mm-hmm.
And the Bucks here, I think, even though acrobatically, even though their bodies might not be as strong, they are showing, I would say, great wisdom in how they can, tell their stories. And you have this continued Mac Jackson ankle injury that he was favoring throughout this match. Just kind of like, getting to like, I would say like the next level, like even if your body doesn't, you mentioned Tanahashi, like, there's a perfect example of a guy whose body's not holding up, but like his psychology is so strong, and that'll be the traits that'll carry this team like well into their 40s and beyond. So I also thought it was like worth mentioning how, like, to me it's been really striking how AEW continues to make a spectacle out of like what you would traditionally consider enhancement matches.
Yeah,
like they often treat these brand new debuts, most of the time they're not even signed, as like featured acts, whether it be in the TNT title matches against Cody, or in this case, like, unsigned talent getting this prime role starting off the show with the video package. So it like, to me, it really takes advantage of like, first of all, I would say an audience's sort of a more sophisticated audience's appreciation for just in-ring quality and for new talent. And I think like there are some real life, like Rocky stories of these guys being plucked from nowhere, being plucked from obscurity, from like Twitter DMs or Instagram DMs onto national TV, being given the biggest opportunity of their lives. Right?
Yeah, no, definitely. And then when you have, obviously, we're not going to continue to see, Top Flight on Dynamite week in, week out. And I think that, if you had them work, in a venue like Dark for a while and get that seasoning in the way that we've seen, Private Party or somebody like Hobbs, right? Who shows up in the one of the Battle Royals, spends some more time on Dark, and now seems to be a full-time Dynamite, roster member. You have that cool little first moment to call back to later on as those people's careers progress, right? If 5 years from now, Top Flight are still with AEW and are maybe tag champions or something like that, you have this cool little moment, right? That the sort of the video package at the beginning was also trying to put forward of, 3 months ago we were working day jobs or whatever it was, and then we get this DM back from Matt Jackson, and boom, all of a sudden we're wrestling our childhood heroes and everything. So even if not every single one of those kind of younger prospect talents pans out, the ones that do have that kind of natural organic connection with the viewership to call back on later on as their careers progress.
Sometimes I do wonder if it's like, if it's worked against AEW in that like they can give this type of spotlight to somebody like a Ben Carter who'll just like, end up signing with the competition. But I mean, I would say like it doesn't seem like they care that much about that. Or at least like they don't mind it enough to like stop doing things like this. I think it's just a really refreshing way of like treating unsigned talent that, to me like shows, I think like just a level of like confidence in like them not being afraid to like give value to somebody who might not ultimately sign with them. So, you also mentioned like you don't know if you'll see Top Flight on Dynamite. Probably not on a regular basis, but it does seem to indicate that they might be sticking around, because after the match, TH2 come out to attack Top Flight ringside, leading to the Bucks to chase them away before encouraging the crowd to give Top Flight an ovation. So do you feel like this was building up to TH2 versus Top Flight, or was this just a way to build to TH2 and the Bucks?
Oh, I think it was, but I was just sort of assuming that would happen on Dark. If it happens on Dynamite, that's cool too. But I was assuming, again, because this run-in, like I said earlier, was sort of predicted by TH2 on Dark. I'm assuming it's just kind of something to keep everybody busy on Dark for a while. But if they want to do it on Dynamite, and if they have confidence in Top Flight to go in there and have another kind of big TV match, God bless them.
We joined the Inner Circle in Las Vegas. This was, I believe, Sean Ross Sapp reported that this was shot sometime on Friday and Saturday. And we meet up with the whole group, plus MJF and Wardlow, the newest recruits. They're playing, they're gambling at the tables. MJF keeps winning games, including cheating by stealing Sammy's cards. The rest of the members, besides Jericho, hate him. Jericho and MJF are at the bar. They're competing over who can order the stiffest drink. They escalate from cocktails to moonshine to Jericho ultimately suggesting shots of Everclear. I'm not even I'm only familiar with the band. Was not aware of the actual drink.
It's essentially glorified white lightning. We're talking about, just very, 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 very high proof grain alcohol that is kind of exists, at bars just as a dare, just as, shots to dare your friends to drink.
So you can actually order this?
Yeah. I mean, it's, I think some states, I can't remember Canada, if you can get it, if we can get it in Canada right now or not. But I think it might be prohibited in some states due to the high proof. But no, it's a real legit actual beverage. But it's basically just branded, moonshine or white lightning. It's just pure grain alcohol that's been watered down a little bit.
Wow. Hager and Wardlow have their own thing going on where they just even in the photo that they sent out, teasing this over the week, the photo said so much because it told you everything you needed to know about the specific characters. You have Santana, Jericho, and MJF just smiling, looking all happy. You have Sammy and Ortiz looking depressed because they hate MJF. And in the same photo, you have Jake Hager and Wardlow staring holes into each other. And that continues here because these two obviously occupying very much the same role as sort of like the enforcers of the group. They have a natural rivalry and they try to compete with one another here by attacking random men off screen or on dragging them off screen to on screen. At this point, the entire Inner Circle is just drunk, stumbling out of a hotel. And Santana and Ortiz say that they're ready for the next spot and they know just the guy. A cloud of smoke appears and out comes Conan. Conan with the Iranian tobacco. They see a magic dragon, an Elvis impersonator, and a guy who I did not recognize, who I can best describe as an overweight Iggy Pop, joining their entourage.
I thought he was maybe supposed to be like Jericho's version of Gilbert or something like that, like his the slobbier version of him, shirtless, long hair, tattoos. I don't know.
Oh yeah, these days, I mean. Yeah. What did you think of these segments?
I enjoyed it. It was pretty fast moving. The fact that, as you're saying, there was enough of the longer, the long-term stories and character arcs were being woven in there, especially the Hagar and Wardlow stuff I was really jazzed for that. I'm not the biggest fan of, Hagar's in-ring work, but they have such a hot prospect in Wardlow there. And it's just building that sort of anticipation for him busting out as a single star is really great. So the fact that was happening alongside the comedy, made this go down a lot smoother than Everclear might for me. I was just thinking about what sort of a conversation Conan and Jake Hagar would have, especially after the election. You'd need to keep that limo really, really hot boxed to make sure that everybody was mellow and keep everything copacetic there.
Honestly, do you listen to Keeping It 100?
I have in the past. I haven't for the past couple of years, so I don't know what his recent comments have been regarding.
I really haven't been keeping up with I know there's probably plenty of political discussion, but I'm actually not sure what that. I mean, I would say even within the Inner Circle, you have to wonder what those dynamics might be.
Yeah.
So anyway, people who do keep up with it, let us know what you think that conversation might have sounded like. We follow up with Jon Moxley cutting a promo by himself. He says, after 16 years, the world finally makes sense to him. He says a lot of what he has learned up until this point comes from his dad, who was a big, scary man. One day, his dad picked him up from the police station and said, "Son, we're the good guys." He goes on to talk about having, the weight of the world on his shoulders. Everybody's trying to bear down on him. And then he says, just kind of in almost a throwaway line, "I have a pregnant wife at home. I know what to do. We're the good guys." And the segment just ends. And Excalibur follows up, says Jon Moxley kind of buried the lead there, dropping a bombshell pregnancy announcement in the middle of this promo.
Yeah, I mean, that was a real sort of shock and surprise to me. I think, obviously this is a real life event that obviously is much more important than a pro wrestling storyline or whatever it might be. But throwing that in there, I think sort of continues to, put Moxley forward as this sort of everyman champion that he's been sort of positioning himself as. I've been really fascinated over the years, certainly back into the WWE time and everything, with the way that he has alluded to and talked about his life, his motivations, all of those sorts of things. Going back to even before he left WWE, there was a really excellent Jericho podcast that he did where he was just sort of talking about, sort of what motivates him, right? Buying a house for his mom, making sure that, his wife is happy and taken care of, right? This very sort of like stressing this kind of like, I'm not motivated, by money or, social media acclaim or whatever it might be. So the fact that, he's able to kind of bring all of that into this storyline, perhaps in opposition to a figure like Omega right now, I think is pretty clever. I was also quite shocked to hear him talking about his father, right? Because that's, if you go back to that interview with Austin, that went kind of way off the rails, it was because, you got the sense that Austin had kind of touched upon something that he really didn't want to talk about by asking about his father there. And by all accounts, that was legit. So I was really surprised to hear him sort of talk about his experiences with his father in a pro wrestling environment.
You mentioned the Steve Austin interview, which, obviously at that point was kind of met with a lot of criticism. Some people even, suggesting the fact that might have been the thing that might have derailed his championship push. But Matt Moxley seems like such a far cry from the one we hear today, not just on screen, of course, but also in interviews, where he's consistently a great interview anytime we hear him on, podcasts or radio shows, where he's just like, he's not the smoothest, in fact, like the way he talks sometimes aggravates me because it's so like, man, like trying to transcribe it, I imagine what is quite difficult. But like he seems incredibly genuine whenever he speaks, and of course, like when it's shaped in the form of a promo, that's when it's at its best. And I have no doubt like this was mentioned here for a reason, not just of course to let the wrestling world audience know, but to give his character that added realistic motivation that is quite likely now motivating his real life to try to give the best performances possible. So. Big congrats to the other John.
Yeah, that's true.
Soon to be a father, as well as Renee Paquette. So congratulations to those two. I feel like there are going to be a lot of pandemic babies this year.
It's probably likely. I mean, it seems like we might have a little mini baby boom going on right here.
Up next, we got Orange Cassidy taking on Kip Sabian. Miro's on commentary, and of course, Miro looks to be the opponent that they're building Cassidy up for. The match starts. We have some technical wrestling. Kip attempts a drop toe hold, but Cassidy just stays still, gets into his hands and his pockets routine. But Orange Cassidy is distracted by high-fiving Penelope Ford, which allows Sabian to gain the advantage throughout the commercial. We have Cassidy fighting Sabian on the apron and then delivering a diving DDT for 2. Sabian attempts to jump up from the apron to the middle rope, but he loses his footing. But Cassidy quickly takes advantage, and they just kind of move along with the match. So I thought that this was some pretty good, spontaneous recovery from these two. Sabian nearly catches his draping neckbreaker, but Orange fights out, hooking his mousetrap pinning combination for the victory. What do you think of the match?
In a reference that, classic Simpsons fans will hopefully understand, this was perfectly cromulent. It was fine. It was there. To be honest, this was kind of the one segment on the run sheet that I wasn't super excited about. you and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, the way in which this whole, Miro, Cassidy, best friends, sort of feud got started really left a bad taste in, I think, a lot of people's mouths. I mean, I'll say this, the video game controller or arcade machine was only mentioned once, as far as I could tell. So I'll take that as a net positive.
Slowly moving away from that.
Yeah,
I hope.
I think we're kind of in a bit of a problem here, or not necessarily a problem, but a crossroads of sorts in terms of how Cassidy's matches in ring are going to be presented. In that, yeah, we've got the hands in the pockets and then the kip ups, happening after that, and then moving into, some more kind of, grappling based stuff. I kind of feel that in a relatively short period of time, kind of Cassidy's greatest hits have really been played out on Dynamite. I remember a long while ago, you and John talking about how they seem to be really holding back on putting Cassidy in ring that often. For the first 6 or so months of Dynamite, it was like 1 or 2 pay-per-view matches, 1 or 2 trios matches, with the best friends there. But you really were not seeing a lot of, in-ring work from Cassidy. And obviously, he was getting over with fans. He had everybody dressing up like that and everything. It's tough to say without fans, the degree to which, how popular Cassidy remains. But I do think we are sort of at a point where the existing Cassidy formula is maybe sort of, kind of not necessarily running out of steam, but maybe needs a reset or a different direction, or perhaps needs to be positioned against, an opponent who is maybe a bit more, I don't know, physically imposing than somebody like Sabian, right? So you get that more sort of styles clash. Oh, geez, how is Brian Cage going to react when Cassidy kicks his ankles or something like that? I don't know. I'm kind of starting to look at my watch a little bit with some of the Cassidy stuff lately.
I still get like quite a bit of enjoyment from him, and I thought this was a pretty good competitive match between the two, including like, pretty good recovery midway through with that little slip up. Yeah. I mean, you mentioned like, I definitely agree that a character like Cassidy works best against the big guy, and that's what they're building here towards with Miro. So, but are you seeing limitations in perhaps the character itself, or is it just the in-ring work that you have issue with?
It's not. I mean, the in-ring work itself is good. I guess the problem is just I sort of the traditional, Cassidy match that has happened on the indies and everything like that for many, many years, in which it starts off doing the comedy and then switches over to the quote serious work. I think that's a sort of match that works really well in indies in a more traditional territory system, right? Where he'd be in for a short period of time and then out or something like that. I think at this point, I would rather see, when it comes to in-ring work, him kind of avoiding or leaving most of the comedy kind of on the apron. And then once it's between the ropes, it's all business, because we know what the comedy spots are going to be at this point. And if you do think that, you have somebody who is more than mid-card comedy in Cassidy, and I'm open to that, right? I don't think that, just because he's a comedy guy or has traditionally been a comedy guy, therefore he is slotted at this level and can't rise above that. I'm perfectly fine, to see him given the opportunity to rise above that. But I do think that necessitates a refreshing or
an evolution.
An evolution, thank you, yes, of the comedy thing, or in lieu of that, just kind of, going with a more serious in-ring presentation.
After the match, Miro leaves the desk and attacks Cassidy, which prompts the best friends to chase him away, so this feud continues. Up next, we've got our contract signing between Kenny Omega and Jon Moxley. Kenny makes his grand entrance. The cleaner dancers are out with him. Kenny, I thought, looked really sharp in this dress shirt and suit jacket, ultra serious. Moxley's music hits, but he does not show up. Cameras go to the back where something is going on. Moxley has been laid out. He's unconscious with a bloody nose. Doc Sampson says he wants to stabilize Moxley's neck. Camera cuts back to the ring as Tony Schiavone asks Kenny Omega if he has anything to say. Kenny then gives the impression that he thinks this is all a charade. He says he's not one for this psychology stuff. Last time it was Moxley's elbow. This time it was a bloody nose. He says no matter what, on December 2nd, he'll be there, and he just signs the contract. So we are left wondering, who laid Jon Moxley out?
Yeah, I mean, I think having Omega be revealed as the person there, I mean, it's simple, it's obvious, it establishes the heel turn if you want to do that. I think there's the opportunity to kind of keep something, and I don't have a name at hand, but I think there's the opportunity for someone else, be it a Lance Archer or something like that, potentially, to be getting in the mix there. As I've been saying over the past, couple of weeks and everything, I really like this kind of subtle turning of Kenny. And, again, if you're still questioning, oh, is this guy a heel or not? Look at how many buttons he had unbuttoned on his shirt. Look at the, the loafers and no socks. That is not the way a babyface comes down to the ring. Definitely not. He had this sort of, oh, I'm not upset, I'm just disappointed in you, John, sort of vibe when he was talking with Tony there. It also seemed like he, after he'd signed his name, wrote a whole bunch of extra words on the contract. So I don't know if there was anything happening there.
I thought he just couldn't get ink out of his pen.
It looked like that took a while, and then he signed the name. But then there were like 3 or 4 lines of other writing that happened beneath the signature. There could be nothing.
Maybe he's got a long real name.
Tyson Meredith, Quincy Smith the 14th or whatever. Wai, I'd be curious to know how you sort of feel about this.
Whether or not he's a heel?
No. About the whole title match on Dynamite thing, right? We were starting off the top there talking with Andrew about Raw putting a title match on TV. Mm-hmm. There's been a lot of talk about that. What's your position on it? I
mean, I think at this point, like, AEW has big matches that they can build to, like, they're not short of like big marquee matches. I mean, certain first time matches like FTR versus the Bucks, I think you save that for a pay-per-view for sure. But Moxley Omega, I mean, it's not a first time match. Arguably, like, it's too, what is it? Revolution is a little too far away for them to keep. Yeah. I'm perfectly fine with them putting it on TV. I think occasionally you have to give people a reason to invest those 2 hours every single week. It's exactly what I said about Raw. It's something that Raw has not done enough in the years that, especially since they've gone to 3 hours. Something that to me makes Dynamite seem that much more prestigious, that much more important every single week, that much more can't miss every single week, is that they will occasionally give you like very satisfying big matches on their TV show, whether it be for a TNT title or in this case, the World Championship. I actually like it a lot. And, if the feud is good, if the match is good enough, of course they can always build to a rubber match at the pay-per-view again if they wanted to. But I love the move.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would agree with all of that. I think when you give it enough time for the kind of the subtleties of the feud and the character work to emerge, right? Moxley now not just as this like kind of prize fighting brawler, but a sort of reluctant hero and face of the company, standing up for all of us and everything like that. Kenny becoming increasingly, more cocky and arrogant. Yeah, if the build to it is fine, I totally agree.
The Eddie Kingston thing, like changed my mind about so much, because not only did they give that match away the first time, like the fact that match existed, I mean, led to the second match existing at all and made the second match arguably that much better, leading to the I Quit stipulation. So I have no doubt that like, by the time Revolution comes around, they'll have something hopefully just as hot, if not even hotter. Mm-hmm. We join the Inner Circle back in Vegas. They're still all very drunk, and they've officially inducted Elvis into the group. MJF has something to say. He says he's always considered himself a lone wolf, and now he's finally found his wolf pack. You guys are like my blood brothers. As Sammy suggests that they actually cut themselves to be blood brothers, but the others stop him. MJF says there's a full moon, and he leads everybody in a chorus of howls. We fade to black, and we fade back up. It's the next morning. Jericho wakes up in bed. He's next to Elvis. Doesn't know what happened. MJF wakes up in a tub as the camera pans, revealing Sammy has written words all over his face. Sammy wakes up in a fountain, and he's now got 3 wives. There are farm animals there. And then there's the sound of a baby crying. They open the door, and it's Swoggle in diapers. So,
womp womp.
It's been a while since I've seen The Hangover, so I don't know how shot for shot accurate this might have been, but that was the idea. What did you think of these segments overall?
This one was maybe not as good as the previous one because there wasn't as much pointing towards future matches or the dynamic between Jericho and MJF. But, it was okay. And at least The Hangover is a slightly more contemporary cultural reference than, old Bob Fosse song and dance numbers and choreography and everything. So that was okay. Again, as long as this isn't kind of impeding the storyline that they're telling of the possible eventual takeover of what I'm assuming is the eventual takeover of the Inner Circle on MJF's part and the expelling of Jericho for a face run there. It was fine.
Much like Dinner Debonair, I really do appreciate, especially like Jericho and MJF's like willingness to go outside of your typical environment on a pro wrestling show in order to further their story. And here, like, the point of this, I think, was just to show that the team was accepting right now, maybe reluctantly in some parts, but overall accepting of MJF and Wardlow's additions. And let's not forget, like, all in all, this probably was an excuse for them to just take a break to go to Vegas, right? I mean, the week prior you had teams like the Bucks taking a break. It seems like, after Full Gear, everybody was somewhat due for a bit of a vacation. So I don't doubt that this was maybe even, a bit of a pretty obvious way to at least give some of those guys a week off, or at least an episode of TV off.
Yeah, without wanting to open a whole can of worms here, though, I mean, there is the whole issue of travel and a place like Vegas, in the current situation, which I didn't, whatever. I don't want to, be the safety police or anything like that, or because we have no idea what sort of systems or precautions were or were not set up. But there was something just very strange and incongruous about just seeing, oh yeah, bachelor party, boys night out, high rolling at the table and everything, when it's like, that is just so far removed from what any of our realities are right now.
They have a lot of confidence in their testing.
Evidently.
Yeah. Jericho is actually in attendance as he joins Tony and the team and JR and Excalibur on commentary. He says that while they all had a great time together, they're more united now than ever, and now it's time for them to beat people up. So Jericho tees up next week's match where he teams up with Jake Hager against SCU. So picking that Jericho-Hager tag team back up. Up next, we've got The Blade taking on Pac in Pac's first match since March 11th. It's been 8 months. Blade's forehead is still taped up from the bunkhouse match last week. Pac comes right out at the bell with a big shotgun drop kick to the corner, controlling Blade right away. He's very pissed off. Pac overall is quite dominant, but Blade repeatedly gets the advantage using distractions from Butcher and the Bunny on the outside. So I would say Pac clearly being portrayed as a babyface in this match during this new run. After a commercial, we get some near falls with a snap power slam by Blade, a big top rope superplex by Pac. Pac goes up top for the Black Arrow. Bunny attempts to distract on the apron. Pac comes down and lays the Butcher out with a kick. Blade attempts a roll up but with a tights hook, but Pac kicks out. Then he proceeds to land a shooting star press to Blade's back and then immediately locks on the Brutalizer for the win in approximately 8 minutes. What do you think of the match?
I really enjoyed it. The fact that they put it at the top of the middle hour, I think, speaks to the faith or the confidence that they had that, Pac's return was going to be a big deal. And yeah, it felt like it. When we were talking a couple of weeks ago about, do you put Pac, heel or face or whatever, and you're probably right. Like, naturally when you look at him, yeah, he does sort of, feel like a more natural heel. But, it was so just fun to sort of remember, oh, right, this guy, he's great. He has this crazy, like He-Man figure physique. Oh, yeah, the Brutalizer. That's a really cool submission move. I'd forgotten about that. It was just this kind of like nice to sort of get reacquainted with Pac's sort of match. And, I think somebody like Blade, Parks is a good base for that sort of thing, right? He's not, there's no danger of, of the crowd getting on side with him if, Pac is being especially like nasty or brutal. So, Pac is maintained as the face in this particular case. He's
a baby face without having to change a single thing about his character. He's the exact same, like bastard character. Does not smile, certainly doesn't play to the crowd. But because of, I guess, the actions of the ring and also the actions of the storyline, you by default want to cheer for him. So I like it a lot. And we continue the storyline because after the match, Pac takes the mic. He's about to say something to Eddie Kingston, but Butcher attacks him from behind. Eddie Kingston leaves the commentary table. He takes the mic. He says, "You think you're a tough guy? I'm going to put you through the gauntlet." But out comes Rey Fenix attacking his former stablemate. Phoenix is laying over top of Pac, trying to protect him. But those two are outnumbered and are beaten down again. So out comes Penta L0M, who comes out wielding a steel chair. Eddie makes way for Penta to attack Phoenix in order to prove his loyalties. Penta pauses and ultimately gives chase to Kingston and Butcher and the Blade. So now we have Penta and Phoenix split from Eddie Kingston, and the Death Triangle has reformed. You know what? Sorry, please go ahead, Bruce.
Oh, no. It's an interesting, when we're talking about, Pac as heel, babyface, or whatever it is, Death Triangle is now a really kind of odd and interesting quantity in the AEW mix, in that you have, again, one of the most natural babyfaces, in wrestling in Phoenix, Pac seemingly one of the most, easy, heels, and then Penta as a possible, kind of more swing character there. There are a lot of stables in AEW right now. It's pretty crazy if you think about it. We've got, let's see, Inner Circle, Dark Order, Team Taz, the Nightmare Family, Death Triangle, what is left of Kingston's family, I guess, and that's not even counting the Elite. So,
are we considering a stable just anything more than two?
I guess, I don't know. I mean, it's
which to me isn't so bad. Like, I mean, we're just ultimately talking about trios, and I love the fact that like they have people branding themselves as like a team rather than just loose collection of like Dolph Ziggler and Bobby Roode. Whoever on in the WWE, Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke. Like I like names. I like people with like matching gear. I have to say, like, considering I think the amount of weeks that they tried to build up to this thing, considering the fact that these two were brothers engaged in a bit of a sibling rivalry, and all the Penta is my best friend stuff, I think this turn should have been far better built, and this moment should have been way more dramatic. Like, I thought all the turns here, instead, from like Phoenix to Penta, to me just all felt like really obvious and kind of unsatisfying. Like, at no point did I ever feel any sort of like emotional struggle on Penta's part to choose between his brother and Kingston. And that to me is something that they at least could have built to, at least for 1 week, with a bit more, I don't know, better layout. I do certainly think like one of AEW's strengths is that their segments aren't overproduced or overly scripted like WWE's. You look at a segment like this, maybe you look at something like, Roman Reigns and Jey Uso. It's the complete opposite, right? One is like almost like, it feels like it's like a scripted drama where like every action, every facial expression is sort of like mapped out to a T. This, I would say, kind of has the opposite effect, where I would say it's almost underproduced, where you've kind of rushed through everything. You maybe just like have loose bullet points, and perhaps an inexperienced actor maybe in like a Penta just kind of like goes through them without any sort of like real dramatic feeling or tension. So, I mean, I feel like a little bit of staging and pacing certainly isn't always a bad thing. And I think that's an area where AEW can improve. Certainly, like Cody's great at it. There are guys that are, Jericho's great at it. But like, I haven't really been seeing that from Penta and Phoenix specifically. But then again, they haven't really been involved in a ton dramatically. So,
well, I mean, they had Lucha Underground before this, right? And there was a hell of a lot of sort of, I mean, obviously, recorded and pre-taped and everything like that, and you have opportunity for multiple takes and things like that. But there was a lot of, kind of dangling mysteries and who is the person behind the curtain and where do this person's loyalties lie that, both Phoenix and Penta were very much involved with at that point. So there's some proof of concept there.
That is a good point. Yeah. In the end here, we have a trios feud between the Death Triangle as well as Eddie Kingston with Butcher and the Blade. So we shall see what the promos will be like between Pac and Eddie Kingston. In the back, we see Jade Cargill, Nyla Rose, and Vicky Guerrero, and Brandy with her arm trapped in a steel chair as Jade Cargill stomps on it. So another stable, perhaps, being built between Jade Cargill, Nyla Rose, Vicky Guerrero, and potentially Shaq. And taking on Brandy and perhaps the Nightmare Family. So, that's in the works as well.
It was odd to see Nyla and Vicky seemingly on the same page after Vicky, exploring.
Oh my God, you're totally right.
Was that just last week?
I totally forgot about that. You're absolutely right. Yeah, what happened there?
Yeah, so I don't know. So maybe they're scrapping that and they're just adding Cargill to the Vicious Vixens posse. I don't know.
They're probably just like, Shaq? We love Shaq. All right, yeah, let's be friends again. We love Papa John's. You hear that DJ said? DJ Diesel? Gotta do that.
Oh boy, yeah. No, I'll say this. Like I was saying off the top, I think that Cargill has a really cool look, and I'd be much more interested in some sort of, regardless of what her in-ring is like, a feud between her and Brandy that is sort of carried by Brandy's promos. If they're anything like the promo that she had last week, I'd be much more interested in that than whatever Shaq and Cody are going to be getting up to. But again, I recognize that the Shaq is a big name to draw in here.
NWA Women's title, we have Serena Deeb defending against Thunder Rosa. This is a rematch from a UWN Primetime Live iPay-per-view 3 weeks ago, where Deeb ended Rosa's 277-day reign. Somewhere in the start of the match, Rosa talks to the camera, taking her eye off of Deeb, as Deeb gains control through a commercial break, working over Rosa's left leg. Deeb attempts a GTS, but Rosa lands on her feet, lands a German. Reba, at this point, shows up at ringside, allowing Britt Baker to attack Thunder Rosa on the ramp behind the ref's back. Deeb does not see this, but takes advantage either way. Powerbombs an unconscious Rosa, but Rosa kicks out at 2. A lot of near-fall combinations, with Deeb ultimately applying her submission. Rosa gets out and hits a double stomp. Rosa escapes a Serenity Lock attempt. Deeb escapes a Samoan drop variation. A few more pinning combos that finally result in Deeb landing her unnamed neutralizer-like finisher for the win in about 12 minutes. Did you get a name for this finish?
They didn't say it on air, and I don't remember if Deeb has used it if she has used it in previous Dynamite or Dark matches.
It might have been the pay-per-view, actually, where she used it, but yeah, they haven't mentioned the name on Dynamite yet, so if you know it, let us know. What did you think of the match?
I really liked this. I'm pretty firmly on record as being a big Thunder Rosa fan. And again, while I wasn't familiar with her work until relatively recently, I think Deeb is a really, really great in-ring presence. I feel like this is kind of the whole, women's NWA scene is kind of one of the hottest sort of in-ring feuds and mixes that's happening in AEW right now. Again, we were sort of talking off the top, with Andrew about the reasons why that might be. But, the fact that you had, Britt and Reba even getting involved here now, suggesting that, okay, they're going to be part potentially of this title chase rather than the AEW women's title scene. That's interesting. I'll also admit this, when Reba did that, run in there, given the way, like the outfit that she was wearing and the way her hair looked, for a second, I thought it was Melina also jumping over from the NWA for a second. Because sure, why not? Everybody's, just bring everybody from the NWA in. But yeah, no, I think it's a feud, or at least a set of competitors that are really, really delivering in terms of in-ring quality. I think that Rosa is somebody with a lot of, pretty broad and immediate appeal. I really like this match. I like the fact that it kind of started with, your sort of Billy Robinson 6-second submission move, then move on to something else, then into the striking and whatnot. Yeah, really good stuff here.
I've been really impressed with Serena Deeb. I think she's been a great champion. Like, she puts on matches of pretty substantial length, and I think they're always very exciting, very high paced, very competitive. She and Thunder Rosa looked great together here. When you definitely compare the two champions, I definitely feel like you can make an argument that the NWA Women's Championship is of a higher status right now than Hikaru Shida's AEW Championship. So after the match, we have a pissed-off Thunder Rosa brawling with Britt Baker ringside, leading to a pull-apart and a tease of our next program. So it seems like Thunder Rosa is sticking around a bit, and I think this feud against Britt Baker is going to be great for the both of them.
Oh, definitely. I think, as kind of, morbid as this is to say, I think that Britt's injury and kind of like that photo of her with, the bloodied up face really sort of kind of, established her with a little bit of kind of oomph and credibility. I think setting her up against somebody with Rosa, like an MMA background, like it feels like just a really cool, legit, feud and match to look forward to.
Speaking of Hikaru Shida, we go to John Silver and Anna Jay of the Dark Order in the backup next. Silver is there to talk Jay up, essentially as sort of like the mouthpiece for the Dark Order, because Mr. Brody, for some reason, is still not on the show. So Silver talks Jay up and says she is no longer a rookie. She is now the Queen Slayer. She's won her last 4 matches, and now she's ranked number 5. He says Mr. Brody has requested a title shot for her next week, and she's going to get it. It's Hikaru Shida versus Anna Jay. Somehow the number 5th ranked. Did 1 to 4 have? They've already got titles. They've already.
Well, she's 99, so she's 99. Don't nickel and dime the great one, as they say on Letterkenny there.
Okay. Well, Anna Jay says last time they fought, she was a rookie, but not anymore. So that's your title match for next week.
It is kind of odd that Brody hasn't been on and hasn't been seen really anywhere for a few weeks at this point.
Yeah, I imagine there must be a reason that they haven't mentioned yet. Maybe the reason will reveal itself at some point. But, when you look at the matches, I mean, it's certainly like seems to be another big win for Hikaru Shida. But I have to say, she keeps getting these victories, but I don't know if she's really any more over. They just seem like kind of one after the other. And to me, a big part of it is just, ring quality aside, we still have very little character story development for Hikaru Shida. And I don't, I feel like they definitely can do better. So.
It's a minor thing, but something as small as the match that she had last week against Nyla, where she very cockily pulled Nyla up after the 2 count, to deliver another knee or whatever it was there. Just have Tony ask her, why did you do that? Why didn't you take the pin? And just ask her to comment on, a kind of a brash and potentially, cocky in-ring decision like that. Just something like that. Just her, talking for 10 seconds about, I just wanted to, make sure Nyla understood that I'm the champion, whatever, you could go in different directions with it, but something as simple as that could be the jumping off point for some sort of character piece.
Next week on Dynamite, we have Will Hobbs in action. We have SCU versus Jericho and Jake Hager. We have Anna Jay taking on Hikaru Shida for the AEW Women's Championship. And we also have Pac Phoenix taking on Butcher and The Blade. We see Darby Allin as he approaches the stage for the main event, where we cut to a video of Darby Allin sitting on top of a roof of a church, holding the TNT title. He is now inside the church, and his leg is on fire.
He can't sleep because his leg's on fire.
Yes. Finn, done. That is the end of the piece. So I love this dude. He's like Jeff Hardy, but maybe instead of sort of the community college art school, he went to maybe the more expensive art school, so everything's in black and white.
Yeah, he's a bit more self-aware, I think, as to how some of this stuff comes across. Yeah.
Cody and Darby Allin are taking on Brian Cage and Ricky Starks in our main event for the night. Taz starts off the match on commentary. Cody comes out to the ring wearing a pizzeria shirt. The shirt looks awesome, first of all, but Taz, or the commentary, insinuates that this is somehow meant as a swipe at Shaq and his Papa John's deal. Did you get it a good look at the shirt?
I did. I think it said everybody loves pizza, everybody loves Cody, I think is what it said. Which I tried Googling, and it looked like there were some pizza, just kind of generic pizza boxes that maybe had an everybody loves pizza logo or writing on them. I did not at all understand the Shaq tie-in. This is getting pretty abstract at this point, but it didn't take up too much time. So
all I want is Cody to come out next week with a set of turntables on stage, just hitting buttons, telling the crowd to just go wild.
We could tie in, Miro and Sabian in there playing Shaq Fu, the classic Genesis video game. Yep.
Yes, absolutely. It's limitless, really. Darby and Stark start off. They have a bit of a technical exchange that quickly devolves into a slap fight. So these two continue their, pretty lengthy rivalry that I just assume will probably carry on forever. Mm-hmm. Cody and Darby, I thought were tagging really well together. Tagging in and out, controlling Brian Cage. This prompts Taz to leave the commentary desk to go ringside as we go to commercial break. During commercial, in the picture-in-picture, Taz grabs Cody's ankle, leading to Arn throwing a chair in the ring out of a fit of anger. Paul Turner ejects him from ringside. We get a hot tag to Darby, who goes on a great run, but the 2-on-1 becomes too much for him as the heels take control. Allen fights back, hits a code red to Cage for a 2 count. Starks looks for the crossroads to hit on Darby Allin, but instead Cody jumps in, hits one of his own on Starks instead. Cage comes in, he cleans house. Double team continues from Team Taz as Cage sets Darby up top and executes an avalanche drill claw for the win in about 11 minutes.
Pretty decent overall, I thought. It is sort of the archetypal, kind of mixed, kind of ad hoc tag team match on one side with Darby and Cody. Although, as you're saying, their in-ring chemistry is good, but obviously, as you're saying, it's pointing towards the singles feuds that we can imagine are coming out of this. I think it also served to sort of legitimize the story or the narrative that Taz has been pushing over the last while. Like, hey, why are we on Dark and not on Dynamite? Okay, now we're on Dynamite. Well, fine. Why aren't we ranked? Okay, now we're ranked. Why aren't we getting title matches? And we can sort of anticipate, some of that. Certainly a title match with Darby coming up.
I really like the tag team match. Great tag wrestling for both teams. I think Starks and Cage are awesome together. But I was also really impressed at how good Darby and Cody looked as a team. Mm-hmm. Cody plays a great babyface in peril, and Darby takes a great hot tag. So, I feel like, have these two tagged before? I forget.
I feel like we did see it. Yeah, I feel like we did see it with, was it with Cage? Or was it with Brody when Brody and Cody was happening?
Probably something like that. But I like the pairing a lot. They have like a big brother, little brother thing going on, and they've been a great pairing, I thought. The chemistry is very good. So I thought a really good TV tag match. Mm-hmm. After the bell, Team Taz continues to beat the babyfaces down, but out comes Will Hobbs with a steel chair. And again, Hobbs chases the Team Taz outside of the ring, and the critical fan will see this and will again argue and make fun of Will Hobbs for perhaps spending a little too much time in catering, not paying attention to the TV. He's again a little too late. Never manages to actually lay a hand on the heels. But the reason for that reveals itself right now as Hobbs grabs the FTW title. Cody drags himself up to lean on him for support, but Will Hobbs, his friendly smile turns into an evil grin as he decks Cody with the FTW title. He has accepted Taz's offer as the newest member of Team Taz.
Yeah, I like this. I did get this strange sense of deja vu, sort of because, just 1 hour previous, we were watching something similar with a post-match beatdown, waiting for the other member of the mix whose loyalties are uncertain at this point in Penta in that case. And you know that Hobbs is running down here a little bit late. But again, the fact that they've been very careful about not having Hobbs actually strike any of the members of Team Taz, has this make coherent sense? I think this, it certainly elevates Hobbs. It keeps him from sort of being just, Cody's plucky young boy or whatever it might be. And I think the Team Taz needed a third member anyway. So yeah.
Like Will Hobbs, like we've yet to see him. Man, we saw one match of his on Dynamite, didn't we? Man, it's hard to keep track of.
I think he's had at least one enhancement match on Dynamite. There was the
weeks ago he was
Rumble.
Like the big debut prior to the pay-per-view was supposed to be him, like, involved with teaming with Moxley and Darby Allin. So I would say like this was probably ultimately in the cards for him turning heel, maybe joining Team Taz. But I would say like I think his profile was probably expected to be a bit bigger than what it is now. Like up until this point, he's just like, Will Hobbs is going to be in action soon. Will Hobbs will probably show up in the end of the match and barely get involved, but not really get involved. So I don't know how impactful this turn on Cody was, but ultimately I don't think it really matters because this is ultimately the start for Will Hobbs. Mm-hmm. This heel run as the latest member of Team Taz, because he like occupies, I would say, like that same very intimidating, like, enforcer type of role as Brian Cage. You have to wonder maybe what the chemistry might be like between the two of them. Like Ricky Starks and Brian, like Ricky Starks clearly has a role all into himself within the stable. Hobbs and Cage kind of like, employ that same very physically demanding space. So we shall see what dynamic they create for him.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen, with Jericho and Hagar sort of doing their little, kind of, oh yeah, we're taking a break from singles and moving over to tag stuff. A Cage Hobbs tag, team, I mean, it would certainly be a unique quantity. It would certainly look a lot different than any other tag team that AEW has right now.
What do you think of the show overall?
Pretty good. I think, given that we are still, we're still just a week or two away from the pay-per-view. We don't necessarily have all of the, the big major matches with the exception of Moxley and Omega, set up for us. The challenge of shows in this sort of period is to keep people interested without pointing too directly to, this match needs to happen right now, or else we're just sort of spinning our wheels. And, and something like the Las Vegas segments, kind of illustrate that sort of principle, right? We are recognizing the larger story that is happening. We are seeing the looks between Hager and Wardlow. We see the dynamic between MJF and Jericho, but also we know that that's not going to blow up in our faces and result in a match in the next week or two, right? So a show like this, that kind of is in a similar position. I think it ended up doing really well. I liked pretty much everything in ring, with the possible exception of the Cassidy match. So yeah, thumbs up from me, definitely.
Thumbs up for me too. I quite enjoyed the show. I felt last week was one of the weaker Dynamites, but you can kind of understand because I think a lot of the principal characters were taking breaks after Full Gear. So last week almost felt, very much like as our up next friends would say, like the hangover edition of of Full Gear, where things felt like they weren't necessarily operating at like full capacity. This week I felt like you finally had a lot of stories set in motion for the next cycle of things between Moxley and Omega, who laid Jon Moxley out. Pac returning and reuniting with the Death Triangle. You have Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa setting up their thing. You have in the main event now Will Hobbs taking on Cody and Darby Allin as that next rivalry. So I think a lot of things were set in motion, and overall it was a pretty entertaining show. So let's go to the forum. Will you care to join me for some of this feedback?
Certainly happy to.
Out of 10, what did you guys think of AEW Dynamite? 7.82. We start off with Stevie, who says, I never give a 10 rating, but this episode had everything I wanted to see. Conan and the hot box limo was my highlight of the night. Will Hobbs turning was not something I expected, but his facials make me believe he will be a much better heel than a big smiling babyface. 10 out of 10.
Nice. I mean, Hobbs is, so young. I think I would say that the jury is still out. He could certainly go either way. And I imagine he'll be tested out either way. For the
how old is Will Hobbs? Because John told me, informed me that the man is actually a 10-year veteran, but with very sporadic. Really? Yeah, but with or at least something like that, but with pretty sporadic, maybe not necessarily.
Oh, wow, yeah, debuted in July of 2009, according to Wikipedia. Damn.
Yeah, right. But I also took a look at his cage match. It's it's a pretty inactive 10 years, right? Until recently. So yeah, I think you still consider him a bit of a rookie.
Yeah. We go to Noah from Vaughn, who says, really awesome show tonight. My match of the night was Deeb and Rosa. They absolutely tore the house down with a really great technical match. Loved the opening match as well. The video they played for Top Flight pre-match was a great way of letting us know who these kids were, and they had a great performance tonight. The ending was really fantastic. For weeks, we've been seeing Hobbs save Darby and Cody, and when he picked up the FTW title, I, like everyone else, was thinking he was going to challenge Cage next week, but the sudden turn was done perfectly and really boosts Taz's group. Excellent episode, 9 out of 10. Congrats to Renee and John. What an amazing way to announce the pregnancy.
We have Mogin up next, who says AEW has shown signs of progress with their women's division. Britt Baker entering a feud with Thunder Rosa is a move that'll benefit the both of them. Speaking of which, Rosa and Deeb put on a good show for the NWA women's title. Pac showed no signs of ring rust. The Death Triangle reuniting as badass babyfaces could lead to some fun with Eddie Kingston's fam. The impending Omega Moxley match has a whodunit twist. The in-ring quality was very high. Will Hobbs' heel turn came out of left field, and he'll be a good opponent for Allen to overcome.
We go to Jay from Colorado. For some reason or another, they censored the word God, but not damn. Oh, yeah, during Jon Moxley's promo on my TNT feed. I'm curious if it was the same for everyone. Yeah, it was that way on the TSN feed for me. Also, during the Inner Circle Las Vegas bit, did you notice how after they met up with Conan and smoked some bud, Jake Hagar had a little Jack Swagger in his walk?
Very good.
Well done.
Kenny says, not one of my favorite episodes of Dynamite, but still a totally enjoyable 2 hours. The women absolutely killed it tonight and were by far the best part of the show. I'm really happy to see that it seems like Rosa is going to be sticking around. While nothing on the show was really bad, I thought that the Inner Circle in Vegas was kind of a flop. While it was great to see Piff and Conan on Dynamite, Piff
is the dragon guy. I looked him up. He's like a stage magician guy whose gimmick is that he's in a drag. Piff the Magic Dragon. Apparently,
gotcha.
He's apparently been on America's Got Talent and Penn and Teller and stuff.
All right. Well, thank you for that tidbit. I was hoping for more than a not funny Hangover ripoff. 7 out of 10.
Fair enough. Your mileage may vary. Brian from New Jersey. I went 8 out of 10 this week, largely on the strength of the matches. I felt for months now that the majority of matches on Dynamite are too competitive and even Steven, possibly because the roster all likes each other and are too polite in booking. But more often than not, I don't mind it most weeks, including here where it made sense for a lot of the matches to be competitive. There were a bunch of non-wrestling segments I didn't care for as much, but they didn't take as much time on the show. Not sure the Moxley Omega build needs a mystery attacker angle, but time will tell. Speaking of Moxley, quite the breaking news from him, and congrats to him and Renee. Hope MLW was okay with Conan's appearance here.
I'm sure they're fine.
Everybody seems to be playing pretty nice with one another in terms of sharing talent right now.
Yeah. I mean, like things like that, I feel like ultimately help MLW more than hurt. Like,
I mean, it reminded me that the MLW refresh is tonight. I'm gonna watch that this coming weekend. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We go to Raymond in Sacramento, California, who says that show left me on a natural high. Firstly, I was floored by Hobbs turning heel and joining FTW. All the late run-ins paid off, and shockingly so. I don't think he'll be a heel forever, and think the option is always there to change him back to babyface and focus on his real-life story. What I want to talk about is the women's match. Serena Deeb and Thunder Rosa had a great match. You could say that it was an in-ring clinic. Hard-hitting, technical, multiple quick pin attempts, really creative stuff. Even with the interference, it didn't hurt the outcome of the match and leads to another story and angle for Britt and Thunder Rosa. Going back to Deeb and Thunder, I'm going to check out the weekly NWA pay-per-view where the title originally changed hands and was won by Serena. Serena has been a great signing, and the deal with NWA to have Thunder Rosa has been a major plus. Congrats, Renee, John, and John. The extended absence makes sense now. Thank you, everybody, for your feedback. And a lot of good feedback to tonight's edition of Dynamite. A lot of great discussion. I thought you and I engaged in, Bruce, as well as Andrew joining us for the first time in sort of like a new format we're going to be playing around with while John is away. Thank you, Bruce. I look forward to doing it again with you next week.
Oh, absolutely. Very much looking forward to it here. So, I mean, maybe I was being a little bit pessimistic off the top.
Hey, come on. Like, you're supposed to feel however you're supposed to feel. I mean, I have to say, like, feedback to Dynamite is usually, like, overwhelmingly positive on our forums. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, like, I'd often disagree, like, at how positive our board might be for it, but this week was one where I did agree. So, but if you felt differently, like, please, like, that's not unusual.
Oh, no. I just meant pessimistic about my own of just showing up here. But no, the actual show itself. The actual show itself, I think was really. Oh,
you're really silly to be pessimistic.
Oh, I'm just being typical Canadian self-deprecation, I suppose. But
so last time I asked you this, you said you had nothing whatsoever to promote other than your podcast. But would you care to promote anything else right now? Maybe the podcast again for where people can listen to you.
Yeah, I don't want to go through the whole rigmarole there again. My friend Alex and myself have been running a website and podcast dealing with goth music, industrial music, and darkwave music for many, many years now. That website is idieudie.com, and the podcast is called We Have a Technical, available through all the usual podcast outlets. We did actually get a few people getting in touch with us, after my appearance a couple of weeks ago. A few people who sort of actually, we sort of have a bunch of mutual friends in common and kind of run in some of the same circles. So it was nice to sort of meet some new people and maybe sort of bring some other folks into our fold there. Apart from that, you can give me a follow if you want on Twitter at Contrasoma. That's CONTRASOMA. If the idea of really lukewarm New Japan and Toronto Blue Jays takes are of interest to you. And I'm also under the same username on Grapple if you're interested in seeing me rate every single Dark match.
Lukewarm Blue Jays takes and New Japan, those are like my two favorite things. So absolutely, you have a new follower here. So thank you very much, Bruce. We have Up Next right now on the website for those of you who want to know what's up with NXT this week. They just announced War Games for December the 6th. So if you're curious about like, you know, whether or not like NXT would go head to head with AEW with anything for that December the 2nd show, the fact that War Games is that weekend to me suggests that they probably don't have anything like that major set for December 2nd, but we shall see. So Up Next is there. Again, I will be joined by Andrew Thompson, where I'll be destroying Andrew Thompson. I'll be destroying John Cena. I'll be destroying Braden and Davey tomorrow on the Up Next Survivor Series Fantasy Draft. That'll take place at, I believe, 7:15 or around 7:15 p.m. at youtube.com/upnext. Be back on Sunday for patrons on the Post Wrestling Cafe with John Cena after thoroughly destroying him, of course, on Rewind to SmackDown. This weekend, we've got the Rocky Maivia picture show out. We've got Phil Chair Talk and Eric Marcotte for our UFC 255 post show, and you can join our Discord to watch the show along with those two throughout the evening. And then on Sunday, me, Mike Murray, WH, Survivor Series post show, live for Double Double Plus patrons. So hope you enjoy all of that. And, congratulations to Renee, Jon Moxley, and John Pollock, and the Pollocks, of course, for bringing all the life into the world. So a very, very happy day in the world of post wrestling. So thank you, Bruce, for joining me, and thank you, everybody, for listening. I'll be back on Friday.